Sandeep, I just forgot your background. You said that you were working on the PLSQL thing, right? I'm sorry, if you can give me a brief about yourself. What's the technology on which you're working right now, Sandeep?
Just 1 second, my audio is getting problem. Just 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rajesh. I
Yes,
work
Sandeep.
for the production analyst. I'm working as a production analyst now.
Okay. For the DBS Bank, you said, right?
SQL, basically SQL and Unix I work on.
Okay. So, are you aware of? So, you must be aware of OLTP, the transaction systems in the web.
Transactions we're not aware of because everything completes, then it comes to our production support, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All the
So
transactions
basically, what
took
will be
place.
your role? Generally, okay.
Sorry.
So what's the kind of role what you do? What's your daily activities? What you perform?
Daily activities, see, we support a production batch where
Okay.
the end users, we going to generate a few reports for the end users.
Okay.
Generating is a big process which takes around 10 hours. We
Okay.
generate different kind of reports as per the user's requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
if you have any issues in the report or any transactions got corrupted or deleted or not present in that particular data which was really valid transaction, then we need to investigate.
Okay. Fine. So see the course as the other day as I said the prerequisites for learning OBA is like one is SQL. I guess you already have that. The other thing is the data warehousing, which anyway I'm going to provide that input about the data warehousing. So our course starts with understanding of operation systems. So what are operation systems? Any idea what are operation systems? So let's make it interactive. Probably I'll be asking few questions in case if you can
Yeah,
answer.
you can,
Otherwise,
but your voice is
that will.
getting bro.
Oh, is it?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
carry
you
on.
might have heard about the operational systems, right? So operation systems are, just their name implies they help the enterprises to run their day-to-day operations. So uh, to start, take any industry in this world, like take banking, insurance, finance, or any industry. Every industry or every company requires an operational system to maintain their operational data or the transaction data. So these are these are also called the backbone systems of an enterprise, right? And examples, as you see here, it's order entries there, payroll, finance, HR, lot of operation systems are there. So initially we are just trying to understand what are operational systems and what are the different features of an operation systems, and we will differentiate between operation systems and data warehouse system. Right? Sandeep, at any moment of point, like if you are not able to understand what I'm saying, please just if you have any doubts or something, you can raise it then and there. Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So let us try to see some of the features of an operation system. So we say operation systems is continuously available. What do you mean by continuously available? So let's take the example of a banking system, or let's say a banking system. What kind of users do you see in a banking system who access the banking application? So when we talk about the types of users, can you just guess what kind of users will be there who will be accessing the banking system, Sandeep?
Banking system, there will be multiple users using the banking system where for the
Uh-huh.
final transaction users where
Right,
guys who exactly do transactions
right.
and the company users, I mean, what do you say,
The
the
bank
data will
staff.
be processed, right?
Yeah. Right,
Those,
right. So basically, when we try to categorize, there might be retail users like end users, the end customers who actually use the banking application. Like probably I wanted to see my bank transactions, or I wanted to see my the balances, right? So as a customer, I might have to see, right? And as a bank staff, in a bank staff, you have people who wanted to generally see the operational data, like they wanted to see what is the total deposits for the day, or what is the total fixed deposits for the day. They wanted to see all these kinds of data. So these are some of the different types. Like you have customers, you have a bank staff. Under the bank staff, again, you have a low-level management and you have a top-level management, right? So these are all different types of users where we say that operational systems should be continuously available. So when it comes to the customer, as a customer, I should be able to access this system at any moment of time, like 24/7. Even at midnight, 12 o'clock, if I wanted to see my balance, I should be able to see it. So it should be continuously available. Or when we talk about general, let's say suppose stock exchange, right? So when we talk about continuously available during the business hours, so I don't want my system to break down in between. If it breaks down, what will happen? The consequences will be very, very like pathetic. Like the business goes down. People who are using that system will face losses when it comes to stock markets, right? So operational systems are something where it should be. They are very sensitive and they have to be available continuously to their users. So when we talk about the predefined access paths, every person who logs in to a particular operation systems, their access paths are predefined. If as an end user, if I have to access my bank account, probably I'll go to my internet login and I'll enter my credentials. Probably for the bank staff, there might be an intranet application which is their predefined access path. So for every end user, they have got their own predefined access paths through which they access their application. So what about the transaction volume? What do you think? The transaction volume, it will be very, very high, because whenever we say operational systems, take the example of a supermarket or a stock market, or take any kind of operation system, you can see that hundreds and thousands of customers will be doing some kind of a transaction. That way, the volume of transactions which happen at any moment of time will be very high when it comes to the operational systems. So these are some of the features where we are discussing, trying to understand what are operational systems and what are the different features of an operational system. And then we have a data volume. What do you mean by data volume per query? Let's say suppose a customer XYZ is buying a product, let's say some kind of a product, and when he's buying, what do you think the volume of data which is going into the system? How much? It will be very, very low. Let's say he's buying a mobile. If he is buying a mobile, probably you'll have an insert statement where it will insert the product name, the product quantity, and the product price, in case probably the customer name. So the data which goes into a particular system will be very low. Used by operation staff. So basically your operation systems are used by your operational staff. So that is one of the characteristic features, and it supports day-to-day control operations. As you know, the main purpose of having the operation system is to control the day-to-day operations. So it supports the day-to-day control operations. And coming to the number of users, you will have large number of users when it comes to operation systems. Your operation systems will be used by thousands of people. Take example of bank or supermarket, you will have the bank staff will be in huge numbers. Any doubts or anything on this? The features of operational system?
No, it's fine. Understand. No, it's fine. We are understanding.
Okay, fine. See, actually the course is probably, you might feel that already you might be knowing this stuff, and if it is a repetition, just let me know, because I have designed this structure in that, the course in a structure where even a person with not, who's not having any idea about the operation systems, should be able to understand. Probably if you already know, just let me know if it is a repetition.
No problem, no problem. You carry on, because it's a good. We are understanding. That's enough.
Oh, okay, fine. So let us try to understand what is the goal of information processing. So can you just tell me, Sandeep, what is the difference between data and information?
Sorry, what is difference between?
The data and the information. The data and the
Data
information.
which is not organized. The information is, am I saying in a different way?
Right. No, no, you're absolutely right. Data is in a raw format, which doesn't make any sense. Information is, as you said, it's in an organized format. You keep it in a proper database. So it is organized, right? You get some kind of information from your information database. Now, as part of our data warehousing process, what we do is we convert this data. We process this information. We convert the data into information, and then we process this information into knowledge. And we try to derive knowledge out of that knowledge database. So over here what you're seeing is you're converting raw data into organized format, and you call it as information. Again, you refine that information and convert and process that information into knowledge by moving the data from your operational databases to a warehouse. So when the information is processed and moved to a data warehouse, from data warehouse you derive the knowledge. So the whole purpose of this course is how you're going to derive knowledge out of your data warehouse.
Rajesh, sorry to disturb. You are
Go
saying
ahead.
operational warehouse and database warehouse, right?
Right. See, when I say operational database, it's not operational warehouse, it's operational database. And see, when you say operational database, it's again a database. It could be Oracle, SQL Server, it could be any database where you're storing organized data. Right? So that is your normal operational databases in the second one. So third one, what I'm doing is I'm converting this operational data into analytical data and keeping them in a data warehouse. So even when you say a data warehouse, it is nothing but it's a database. All your data warehouse data has to sit inside a database only, right? So data warehouse, when I say data warehouse, it's a logical name. Again, at the end of the day, the data warehouse data, again, it has to get stored in a database only, right? So here also it is database, here also it is database. But only thing is you are refining, you are processing, you are converting this normal information into a knowledge. You are converting information into knowledge so that this knowledge can be applied for making decision-making purposes. Yeah?
Yes,
Is that
yes.
clear?
Well, yeah.
So again, when you talk about the need, what is the need for a separate information system? So when you say information system over here, we are referring to a data warehouse. So it is distinctly different from your operational data. When you say information system over here, it is distinctly different from your operation data in its structure and content. So how it is different how it is different from the structure and content, we'll just going forward we'll see how it is different. So just to give an overview, the structure and content of your normal operational data is in a relational format. So probably it is it will be useful for your operational purposes. But when it gets processed and when it's moved to your data warehouse, the structure and content can be used for decision making purpose. Right? I'll be discussing much on this, like the structure and content, how it is different going forward. So this is typically how your OLTP server, your transactional system, and a data warehouse look like. A typical architecture where you have the tactical information, or this is your operational systems, where you also call it as online transaction processing server, where all your operational data is being stored in your OLTP server. You also call it as a tactical systems or tactical information, or you call, see, people call this particular system in different ways. Some people call it as transactional system, somebody call it as operational system, someone call it as tactical system. So it's all one and the same. Yeah. So if you see here, you are trying to generate operational reports out of this OLTP server. So generally what will happen is people, the bank staff who use this operational system, the OLTP server, whenever they want certain reports, like take the example of the bank, what kind of reports do they generally generate every day? Like they wanted to see the total deposits for the day or the total withdrawals for the day. So they wanted to finalize, like they might be doing reconciliation at the end of the day. So all these are operational data which they perform on the OLTP server. Now on the right hand side, you can see that there is one more server, which is your data warehouse server, where your data is getting converted. You can see that there is something called periodic refresh. What is this periodic refresh? So every day the data from your tactical or your OLTP server moves to your warehouse. It moves to your warehouse. So this is what we are calling it as a information processing. Your information from your OLTP server is converted, refined, and being moved to your data warehouse. So once it moves to the data warehouse server, it can be used for strategic decision making. Right? So the process, the conversion process, what is that which is happening in between is what we are going to learn in the future slides. In short, this is what we call as ETL process: extraction, transformation, and loading. So you're extracting the data from your OLTP server, converting that and transforming that, and then loading it in your warehouse. So your OLTP server is basically used for operational decision making. So operational decision making is like, on a day-to-day basis, how is your OLTP system is going to help you out, right? But your data warehouse server, we don't use it for our day-to-day business purposes. We use it only for strategic information, or in short, I can use my data warehouse server information for short-term and long-term decision making. So in case if I want, yeah, go ahead.
You said that where online transactions will take place and stored, that is a transaction server, right?
Correct.
Then the other thing is data warehouse, where it's stored, the derived thing which is extracted, the storage devices, data warehouse. So ETL process is happening. So what exactly you call, in which server it is going to be done?
The ETL process?
Yeah.
The ETL process, in between you have a staging area. So this is just an overview. Again, down the line I'm going to show you a detailed architectures how it works. But over here it's just an overview of the OLTP server and data warehouse server. Over here in this picture it's not shown the process, how it is converted and all.
Yeah, so but something is there in the middle, right?
Yes. There in between, there's so much of things. There are a lot of things are there in between. So I'll be discussing that. This is just an overview, just a bird's eye perspective of the whole system. Yeah. So in between there are so much, because your data has to extract and get into a particular staging server, and from the staging server you perform load, the transformations, and then from there you load that data into your data warehouse server. So there is a staging server in between. So down the line we'll be showing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So let us try to understand some of the differences between your operational systems and your analytical systems. So when I say analytical systems, again it is a data warehouse system. So when we say operational systems are primarily primitive in nature. So take any operational systems, we start with a creation of a database where using relational modeling. So basically they are primitive in nature. So when you talk about analytical system, they are derived. So using your operational data, you convert that operational data and then make it derived. So you derive out of your operational system, that you are converting the data of your operation system. That's why we call it as primarily it is a derived system. You are deriving it from operational data. And looking at operational, it is current. The information what you store in your operation systems will be current data. And in your warehouse, you store historical information. So this is one of the major difference between your operational system and analytical system in a data warehouse system. In a data warehouse system, you maintain historical information, whereas in your operational system, take an example of normal operation system, they will not maintain any historical information. And operational system, constantly they update the data constantly. What do you mean by that? So they frequently interact with their operational system. So every day they have to be interacting with their operational systems to get operational data. Whereas your analytical system, once you move the data from your OLTP system, that's it. you will not update that particular transaction. Very frequently, you will be updating the data which is there in your data warehouse. Once the data is moved to your data warehouse, that's it. You just access it, but you will not update anything in that. So, in short, you can also call your data warehouse systems as a read-only system. You insert the data, but you will not do any kind of manipulations to the data. So, very rarely you manipulate the data in your data warehouse systems. And when you talk about operational systems, they are minimal redundant. So the data inside your operational system, so they follow the concepts of normalizations. So Sandeep, are you aware of normalizations? The concept of normalization?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. So the concept of normalization, to understand that, you need to understand some database concepts where what I'll do is I'll share you some of the documents for, to understand the basic concepts of, the normalization and the stuff. So what it says is the structure is, a relational structure. So in a relational structure, when I say a relational database, they'll have to follow certain rules, like, normalization 1, every data which is there inside a table has to depend on a particular primary key. So all the data which is in case if I'm saying a customer table, all the columns which are there in your customer table, they will have to depend on the customer key or the primary key which is available in that table. Like that, one of the rules, what it says, see, primary key, when you assign a primary key to a particular table, so it will ensure that you will not enter any duplicate data in that. So when I say a primary key, it means that that particular column cannot have a duplicate data. It ensures that it is, say for example, employee number in a company, right? Can I have duplicate employee numbers in a particular company?
Yeah, it cannot be, but one thing, I faced this issue in my process. Even though primary key was there for a particular table, there was duplicate data inserted which we manually deleted.
Correct. These are some of the problems, these are some of the challenges what you face as part of your ETL. So when you have multiple source systems or people, the end users, when they enter the data, probably they might have entered the wrong data, or due to integration of multiple sources, there might be a situations coming arising, maybe because of the database wrong design, maybe if you have not assigned a primary key, there are so many scenarios why you have this. So one of the features of your data warehouse is, as part of your ETL process, you try to eliminate all these redundant data, whatever duplications are there, in case of whatever, these kind of data challenges are there, you will have to remove them. So, but is it not a primary key in your database?
No, it was there, it was mentioned. I have seen the table also, where it clearly mentioned primary key also, but I don't know why it is the.
Okay, see, generally if it is a primary key, if you try to insert a row using the same EMP number which is already there, it will not let you insert a record. Okay. So that is what a primary key is. The main purpose of a primary key is it will ensure that kind of integrity. So it will ensure that a user cannot enter a duplicate value, so that it ensures. So when you have multiple sources, let's say suppose you have X1, X2, X3, three different applications, and these three applications, they have separate databases to store their own data, and you are trying to merge all these information, then the primary key what they are holding might not be relevant for the target system. In such scenarios, you might find that the duplications come up. So there might be a number of reasons why, so as part of your ETL process, you have to ensure that these duplications are removed. Yeah. Any queries still, or you have understood the minimal redundancy concept?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Next is highly detailed data. So when you talk about the operational systems, the data what you show in your operational system the data what you store in your operation systems will be highly detailed. For example, if I'm buying a product, I'm storing all the minute details of the product, like the product ID, the product SKU number, or the product price, the customer who bought the product. So all the detailed data will be stored as part of your operational systems. But when it comes to your analytical systems, we store summarized data, because my top management is not interested in my operational data. They are very much interested to understand the summarized data. That means they don't want to know what happened to the daily sales. They just wanted to see monthly what is their sales, or quarterly what is their sales, quarterly what is the profit, quarterly what is the production capacity. So these are some of the things which which they are interested in. They are not interested in the daily data, because they have the operations staff who will be taking care of the daily operations. So the top management will be interested only in the summarized data. So in your data warehouse system, along with the detailed data, even though you store the detailed data, but you also store summarized data. So your data warehouse store both your detailed data, which is refined and converted, and along with this refined data you will have summarized data. Referential integrity. So when you talk about referential integrity, again we are talking about if there are two different tables, how they are referencing with each other. You have this primary key, foreign key concept, which is nothing but your referential integrity. So in EMP table, let's say suppose there are employees like 101, 102, and 103. These are the employees, right? And they are department 1 and department 2, where these three employees are working, right? So in my department table also I have department 1 and department 2. In case if I am trying to enter employee in my employee table for department 3, it will not let me. It will not let me enter department 3, because department 3 is not available as part of my department table. So that is where we call it as referential integrity. So ensuring this foreign key and primary key relationship between two different tables is done as part of your operational systems. So operational systems will enforce the referential integrity, whereas your analytical systems, they enforce historical integrity. What do you mean by historical integrity? Historical integrity means, say today you have received a customer. Let's say in 2015 you have a customer by name maybe Ravi. Let's say Ravi is a customer who has bought some products from our stores in 2015. Again in 2016, if Ravi comes, we should be able to identify Ravi. We should be able to identify Ravi in 2016 also. So whenever he is, so based on this information, I should be able to understand Ravi's customer behavior, Ravi's behavior pattern. What kind of products is he buying, right? And what is the kind of budget he is having, and how frequently he's buying our products. So all these buying patterns I can make out only when I have historical integrity. That means if Ravi is buying from my store from the last 3 to 4 years, so I should be able to identify Ravi in all these 3-4 years. So there should be a customer key which is unique across all these years. All these years there should be a unique customer key for Ravi, so that I can identify that Ravi has been buying from my store from the last 3 to 4 years, and I should be able to identify Ravi's buying behavior pattern. I should be able to identify everything about Ravi. So that is what we call it as historical integrity. So when the data is stored in a historical way, that means if I'm storing the data in, let's say past 5 to 10 years, in all these 10 years the customer data or whatever data what you store, it must be integrated. That means that integrity has to maintain. Right? Operational systems, we know very well that they support day-to-day operations, whereas your warehouse systems, they support long-term decision. As I said, you wanted to forecast sales for the next December. How do you do that? Right? You wanted to forecast how the pricing has to be done for the coming product. So all these are strategic decisions which the top management will take, and they basically use your data warehouse system. So based on past data, they will try to predict the future. They try to forecast the future. And when you talk about operational systems, the design, when you talk about the design, the database design is normalized. So as I said, I'm going to share you some documents for understanding the normalization concepts. So just go through normalization is like it all started long back in when the database was invented. At that time, the cost of buying a database, the cost of storing the data in a database was very high. Now it is not so high, but those days the cost of storing data inside the database was very high. So people were trying to define structures, define their algorithms in such a way that storing is optimized. The way you store the data is optimized. So for example, if I'm entering a employee number or a customer data or employee data, I should ensure that my employee or my customer data is not getting duplicated, So, so I have to implement that. I have come up with kind of referential integrity where I'm saying that there is a relationship between two different tables. So that way, I'm trying to ensure that these normalized, whatever normalization rules are there, they are enforced. And when it comes to denormalization, denormalization is the process, it's a reverse of normalization. So what they do is over here is they actually duplicate the data. In order to increase the performance, they duplicate the data. So probably going forward, I'll show you how do we do this denormalization. When you say denormalization, we are talking about the multidimensional architecture. We're talking about the dimensional modeling. So as part of OBA course, we'll be doing this dimensional modeling. We will understand how to create star schemas and all this stuff. So your operation systems, basically they are normalized, the structure is normalized, and whereas your analytical or your data warehouse systems, they are denormalized design. Any queries, Sandeep? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, for operational system, you said normalized design will be used because to avoid the duplications and what do you say, to maintain some unique constraint for any particular
right.
So you are in analytical, you are denormalizing, right? So
correct.
will there be a conflict in that again?
Conflict will not be there. So your structure will be in such a way that I'll try to give an example so you can understand.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my Excel sheet?
No. No.
Let me see. Now are you able to see my Excel sheet?
Yes.
So when we talk about, let's say I'm giving an example, let's say employee table, and you have department table. Now when I say employee table, I have, let's say, employee number, employee name, employee salary, and department number. Okay, these are, let's assume there are 4 columns. And are you aware of this Cotton Tiger architecture in database?
Sorry?
Everybody, are you familiar with Oracle database?
A little bit, not.
Right. So generally, whenever anybody learns Oracle, they generally go for, there is a schema called Scott and Tiger. Do you remember that? Scott and Tiger. There is a schema called. Yeah. Okay. So no problem. So 101. So let's assume that these are your employee numbers: 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, and name. Let's say A, B, C, D, E, F, and salary. Let's say 1000. 2000, 3000, 2000. So department, let's say 10, 10, 10, 20, 20, 20. So this is how my employee table is structured, and this is my primary key. This is my primary key, and over here this is my primary key. In my department table, my department number is my primary key. So when I say primary key, that means I cannot have duplications. So let's say this is sales, number 20 is, let's say this is finance, and I have got two departments. Right? So when I say referential integrity, now first we'll start with primary key. When I say primary key, that means I cannot add a record. If I try to insert a record with 106 and give a name like G and some salary, so it will not take this because 106 is already available. I have defined employee number as a primary key. So it will not take 106 because it is defined as a primary key. Right? So this concept is available as part of your relational structure as well as your even your dimensional modeling and normalized structure, both. Right? So let's assume that we are discussing right now about normalized relational database. So this is primary key. You understood, right? Primary key concept.
Yeah.
And over here the same thing, primary key. So I cannot add one more department, let's say marketing, like this because 20 is already there. So I cannot add this. In the same way, I will say that my department number which is available in my employee table is a foreign key. It is a foreign key and which is referring to the primary key of my department table. So I'm saying department number, EMP tables department number is referring to department table of department number. So it is referring to, that means whatever I'm saying, that I'm enforcing a referential integrity between these two tables by joining these two columns. That is the department number. I'm saying that it is a foreign key here and which is having a referential integrity with your primary key of your department table. So in that situation, if I try to enter, let's say 107, even though the column name is the employee number is a new number, let's say suppose I'm trying to enter something over here, let's say 3000. If I try to enter 30, it will not allow me because do you see 30 over here? You don't have a 30 department here. Department number 30 is not available. So if you are trying to enter a department number which is not available over here, it will throw an error saying that you are violating the referential integrity between your employee table and department table because your department number is getting all the values from here. So it is having a referential integrity between your employee table and the department table. You're getting it?
Yes.
So since 30 is not available here in your department table, you cannot enter anything, any other value which is not available here. This is your primary key. So this is your primary table. This is your parent table. So in your parent table, it will check whether that particular value is there, whether the department number is there. If it is there, it will let you. If you enter 20, it will take that value. But if you enter a value which is not available over here, then it will not take. So that is called referential integrity. Referential integrity. Yeah.
One second.
Go ahead.
Understand what you're saying. If see in a bank, some other customer has came tomorrow. New transaction has come. So we can't enter into this this one, right? So before doing that, entering into expecting some new things, we need to update our tables. Then transaction need to be included, right?
See, when you say a customer, okay, for a customer, you already have a customer table defined.
Okay.
When you say a bank customer, let's say customer is there. So I have a customer name. So every new customer will, you will have to generate a customer ID for him. Whenever a new customer comes, you will have to generate a customer ID. So every bank will have its own process of generating a customer ID. So once they generate the customer ID for that customer, then you will be entering all the customer information to the customer table. So let's say 101, say C101.
No, you take the example of the same employee table. You have department 10, 20 and 30, right? So 30, you got one more department as a 30, right?
Okay, I can
Which
add one more department over here. If I add, let's say I'm adding one more department, let's say supply chain. Okay, there's one more department. Then I can add it here.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
if
So
I
to
want,
do
I can
this
add.
one, we need to deploy before
We need to add one.
itself.
Right. Correct.
So we
We
need
need
to
to add
change our
before.
tables and everything.
Right. We need to change. We need to modify your data inside your department table. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. You are not changing the structure of the table. See, there are two things. When you say change in the structure, change in the data. Changing in the structure is a huge change. It might have different consequences, right? So changing
No,
the
here
structure generally.
one more department in the name. That's it.
That's it. So it's not a huge thing. It's just you're adding one row of data. So that's not a huge change. So it's
Yeah.
normal. You will see these kind of things. Yeah. So this is what we talk about, a relational approach or a normalization approach. So you're saying that whatever columns which are available over here, all the columns must be dependent on my employee number, on my primary key, and that is also one of the normalization rules. One of the normalization rules is all the columns which are available, like e-name, EMP salary, department number, whatever other columns are there, every column must depend on the primary key. I cannot have a column, let's say suppose stock number. Stock number is nowhere related to employee. So I cannot add stock number over here. So every column which is part of this employee table must be related to this particular key. Yeah. So now, as part of this, I was talking about the duplication, right? This is where you raise the doubt. So if I wanted to query a data, let's say I wanted to query the employee name and the department name, how do I write this query? So I'll say select ename, comma dname. So select ename. Let's say I'll say select emp table dot ename, comma dept table dot dname from emp, comma dept, right? emp, comma dept table. I cannot just write, so I need to write a where condition, where emp dot dpt number equals to dpt dot dpt number. So this is the query I need to write in order to fetch the information from both the tables, because I don't have my dname as part of my employee table, right? So since my requirement is I want the names of the people and the department names, I need to join these two tables to get the information from these two tables, right? So since my dname is available only in department name, I'll have to join this. Imagine if I'm duplicating this data over here, okay, over here. So in that case, I don't have to create a join. I can straight away get this information from a single table. Don't you think so? Imagine dname is part of your employee table. Department name is part of your employee table. Then what will happen? I don't have to create a join between these two tables. I can simply say select EMP number and department name from employee table, isn't it? So over here you can see that I have duplicated this. I have duplicated my data. So this is how your dimensional model works. In a dimensional model, you will introduce duplication so that you can avoid these joins. So why do you want to avoid the joins? To improve your report performance, you try to avoid the joins. Remember, performance is performance. When I say report performance, is directly proportional to number of joins. So if your number of joins are, so sorry, it is indirectly proportional. So it is indirectly. Indirectly means if your number of joins are less, your performance will be more. If your number of joins are more, then your report performance will be less. So it is indirectly proportional. So what I would do is, so in order to improve my performance in a data warehouse system, I will duplicate my data. So in an employee table, I can directly add DNAME, and then I can avoid this extra join. Whatever join you are seeing, I can avoid this. But in case of relational structure, this is not there. In case of relational structure, the concept of normalization is you need to reduce the dependencies. So, but in order to reduce the dependencies, you end up creating joins. So in a relational structure, I'll have to put this join because I don't have department name as part of my EMP table. As part of my employee table, I don't have department name. So in that scenario, to get the information from both the tables, I have to provide a join. Otherwise, I cannot get the data, right? But when I provide a join, my report performance will go down. So to avoid this kind of report performance in a dimensional modeling, in your data warehouse, what you do is you duplicate the data. In a data warehouse, what you do is you try to keep this data as part of your employee table only. In such a scenario, I will avoid the join. If I add this over here, let's say assume that my table structure is in such a way that I duplicate my DNAME in my employee table, right? So every employee will have a department number and correspondingly a department name. Now Control C, this is sales, right? And finance is there. Imagine if your table is like this, department 20 is finance. Now if I wanted to get the employee name and the department name, I don't need this. Do I need this? Not required. Simply I can get every information from a single table. So this way I'm avoiding the joins and increasing my report performance. Yeah? Is that clear, Sandeep?
Yes.
So this is what we try to do as part of this thing. So normalization, where the concept is you are trying to try to save the space, the database storage space, because the concept of normalization has come into the picture long back, where they are mainly interested in saving the space instead of the report performance. But data warehouse is something which is which has come recently, like let's say 10-15 years back, where at that time database space was not a priority, but report performance was a priority. So for them, they have started with the denormalized design, wherein they will introduce the duplications to increase the report performance. So I think it's 9:30. I got another session, Sandeep. So what I'll do is, like, we'll wind up for today. So what time? So generally evenings you said, right? 7:30, 8 o'clock is your time which you are looking at, right?
Actually, I'm looking at 7:30 itself, because if it is 7:30 in India, it's 10 o'clock here. So after coming from office, if start at 10 o'clock after dinner, it will be very horrible to. You understand, right?
I understand. Actually, all my students, like, they are from the west side, so that is you are the only one I'm seeing from east, actually. So
your business is growing here also.
Which business?
Your training business is going here in east side also, I think.
East side, yeah. I was last month I was having a student from Australia. So, but okay, that way I can manage. Like, it is just 3.5 hours behind, right? Singapore and India.
1.5 hours here.
Yeah. So that way actually it's creating a problem. Otherwise, if it is exactly 12 hours, there is no problem. So either it will be early morning or early evening for
Yeah,
both
yeah.
of us, like trainer and the trainee. But since it's just 2.5 hours, that's creating a problem. So generally, see, by the time I reach home, it will be around 6:37. 7. Sometimes what will happen is due to some meetings or other things, I end up there and it might go beyond that. Otherwise, 7:30 should be fine with me. 7:30 will make it 7:30. Okay. Fine. Will 8 means it will be 10:30 for you, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
10:30 will be too late for you again. Right?
Yeah, again, have to get up in the morning, right?
Right, right. I understand that. Yeah. So fine.
One thing,
7:30 will
every Saturday, Sunday, we'll have 2 hour session.
Saturday, Sunday. Sandeep, actually, because of all these hectic things, I'm not able to spend time with my family actually. So it's a weekend which I get time, and now because of this, actually, do you want a daily thing or weekly? See, we have something called weekly batches that if you want to join, that also it is fine.
No, no, no,
Normally, I
we
have a
prefer daily itself.
okay. See, we have a weekly batch of every Saturday and Sunday 2 hours. See, normally in weekdays every 1 hour, Monday to Friday it's going to 5 hours, right? The same thing what we can do is I'm just giving an option. It's up to you. In weekdays like Saturday, Sunday, we cover those 5 hours in the Saturday and Sunday. So I was actually taking 9 to 11 because Friday has requested me to just move this particular to 9:30. I said okay. So in case if it is possible, you can join that weekend batch which has just started. Okay, that is one option. Otherwise, if you want a weekday batch, then we can continue with 7:30. 7:30, but here and there we'll just have to adjust. Sometimes
No, fine, that's
get
fine.
to
Daily, it will be good for daily itself.
daily itself. Okay,
Yeah.
fine, man. So let's meet from Monday onwards. We'll have it at 7:30 in the evening.
Oh, so Sunday is a holiday.
Sunday is a holiday. Yeah. Sunday, do you want all the days in a week?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine for us.
No, but again, let me check. All the days might not be possible with me Sunday
Because we
because
are having
again,
only 1 hour, right? So it won't be I don't think so. It will be spending huge
no,
time
for
there.
you it is for you it is 1 hour, but again for me I'll have to manage other batches also, right?
Yeah. So other batches, if
I
you are
have to
taking, manage this also, right? Sunday.
Sunday. Let's see, Sandeep. 9 to 11, I'm already having a batch, but again after 9 to 11, I'm probably I might have other works to do at home, right? So that is the only thing. So normally, see, weekend batch we have Saturday, Sunday. Weekday batch it's Monday to Friday. This is how normally I work. So that even the weekend batch, I just have only one weekend batch. So just spend 2 hours in the weekend and spend the rest of the time with the family. That's what I have planned. Today, like riders requested, just start because like we have been postponing for 2 3 days, right? So he said
Yeah.
let's start that. So I said okay. So tomorrow, okay, tomorrow is Sunday. Let's have tomorrow also. But next week onwards we'll have Monday to Friday. Is that fine with you?
Is it Monday to Saturday is okay at least?
Monday to Saturday. Let's see, Sandeep, because it will be too hectic for me, Sandeep.
The thing is, it's already 10th, right? I just need to wind up this before next month, 10 or 12.
When you wanted to wind up for
Next month around like 12.
sure 1 month, 1 hour, okay.
So that is the reason I'm
Okay.
asking every 2 hours. But you said the Sunday is holiday, it's okay, fine. But Saturday you can, I think, if possible, if it is feasible, you
Mhm.
can buy 1 hour.
Okay.
So 6 hours
Fine.
per week we can go.
Fine. So we'll do that way. Okay. Fine. Let's make the Saturday also. Hmm? Fine, man. We'll have it Saturday also. So you wanted to finish it fast, okay. So what I can do is like in between also whenever there is a possibility we'll have a 2 hour session. So that way we
Yeah,
can complete it.
yeah, fine, fine, that's fine.
Because I don't think by next month 30 sessions we can finish it. So in between we'll have to spend more time. Even if I'm
Yeah,
taking on one day of at least 4 hours gap will be there. So 4 hours we'll have to, somewhere we'll have to, spend.
4
Okay, no
hours,
problem.
I think we can manage, no problem.
Yeah, fine, we'll do that way. Yeah. So fine then, I have a session at 9:30. I think I'm late by 5 minutes there. So
Okay,
what I'll do,
may I know who's the Rajesh Kumar and who's Rajesh? Both are there in the.
myself. Like, there is some audio problem with my laptop. So I just logged into my iPad and just
Oh,
my audio is through iPad actually. The iPad,
okay.
whatever you're listening is from iPad, and the whatever document what you're seeing is from my laptop. So
Fine,
I'll
fine,
have
no
to
problem.
format. So no problem. So so let's meet on Monday, or you want tomorrow a class?
It's your wish. If you're okay with tomorrow, we'll join, no problem.
I'll just update you because probably I might or might not be tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye.
Rajesh, 1 second. Oh, no. Rest else fine. Rajesh, are you there? Hello?
Hello. Yeah. Tell me, Sandeep.
Rajesh, 1 second. You said that you will share that curriculum. What do you say that
Okay. I'll share that curriculum. Yeah. I'll send it to right.
program
I'll share
what
it.
going to provide? What do you say? What do you going to cover?
Oh, the course content. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll share that. Yeah. I'll share that.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll I'll share it to yeah, Ride will be sharing it to you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Fine. Yeah. Thanks.